Have a fun video you'd like to see featured on NCW Life? Email us at newsphotos@ncwlife.com.
Hi, welcome to the show. I'm Life with Lisa Bradshaw. A couple of months ago, I saw a story on Facebook that went viral about a woman named Christine Wayne from New York. She'd had a heart attack at 37 years old. She didn't have any risk factors, and the doctors can't explain why it happened. I was compelled by her story. She wrote a very long story on Facebook. Usually very long stories written out on Facebook don't go viral sometimes because people don't read the whole thing, but I read it from beginning to end, got in touch with her, and we'll have her on the show a little bit later via Skype. First, we have in the studio with us now Dr. Kathleen Love of Confluence Hospital. She's a cardiologist, and she's going to give us good advice for prevention of heart attack, but also explain the risk factors and the difference between a female and a male who might be experiencing symptoms of a heart attack. Thanks for being here.
Happy to be here.
Welcome to the area. You're new to us.
We are. Thank you.
So thanks for being here. You are familiar with Christine's story. You read about it, and you've heard her talking a bit earlier in the show before we got on the air. Tell us a little bit about that unexplained group, that age of people that have a heart attack, or the risk factors, or how likely someone is under the age of 50.
Sure. So we know the classic person who has a heart attack is more over the age of 55 to 65. But there's about 10% of the heart attacks that are experiencing with those under the age of 50 to 55. And about 20% of those patients don't have any of the classic risk factors that we talk about with heart disease. Those being diabetes, hypertension, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and smoking, things like this. And so we know that these 10% of individuals are out there, and there's still much more research that needs to be done to help target why it is that these patients have heart attacks.
It's a very low percentage, but if it's you or someone you love, then that statistic, it doesn't really matter.
Absolutely.
So it is with Christine's situation, and again she'll tell it later in the show. She was having cold flu symptoms, and that is scary to me, because if you can't recognize the difference between a cold and a heart attack, what are some common symptoms of experiencing a heart attack that it's coming on, in her case, throughout the day, maybe a week, or a lot of times when someone dies of a heart attack, we don't get to hear that they weren't feeling so good. And the people who survive, we do get to hear that. But in her case, it was like having the flu.
Right, yeah. We're all really accustomed to what I call the Hollywood heart attack. So you see the man who suddenly clutches his chest and falls to the floor.
Like Red Fox on Sanford and Son, you know, that whole
It's very dramatic
thing.
And then, and so is the treatment. But with women, the onset of heart attacks can be much slower and progressive. So similar with Christine's story, women often present with what we call more atypical symptoms. So classically, we talk about chest pain, but chest pain can be a heaviness, it can be a squeezing, it can be a pressure. I've heard a lot of women say, it just felt like my bra was too tight. And so, something that you might otherwise put off, maybe I just need to wear another bra, maybe I, ate too much or something that day. So that squeezing sensation, pressure on the chest is something first and foremost to pay attention to. And secondly, if that symptom, similar to Christine's story, gets worse when you try to exert yourself. So it's there for a few minutes, and it progresses with exertion. That would be a significant warning sign. Unexplained fatigue, shortness of breath, lightheadedness, dizziness, all things that may kind of come with a cold or an illness. Those can come with it, but again, taken together and in context, are worrisome symptoms for a heart attack. And also, like Christine, nausea. Women also often present with a symptom of nausea as a manifestation of chest pain, and it has to do with how the pain receptors and everything in the chest kind of interrelate. But in women, it is a more typical story that we hear of atypical symptoms.
So then there's a difference between the symptoms and So if someone's at the gym and they're on the treadmill and they feel fatigued, or they walk up the stairs at home and they're out of shape and they are short of breath, those are things pointing to you need to get in shape so you don't fall into those risk factors.
Sure.
But if you have exertion and you feel exerted because you're exerting yourself, that's a very different thing.
Right.
Because I hear people say, well, I don't know, kind of scared to work out because I am so out of shape. But you're not at great risk of a heart attack from being out of shape and starting to work out. It's the prolonged being out of shape and not taking care of yourself and having high cholesterol and all these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are you know, it's the marathon, not a sprint, so to speak. It's those things that are with you a long time. And as far as fatigue goes, it would be a change from your baseline. So you know you best, and when things are really out of the ordinary and you can't explain it based on how you've been living your life, those kind of things are something to pay attention to.
And what's your advice for someone who's under 50 or over 50 and is having that experience? I imagine there's some reluctance, especially under 50, even under 60, for someone to think, you know, it's kind of embarrassing, or, you know, to show up at the ER or to make that call to 911 if you're home alone. What is your advice? I mean, at what point do you know the difference between I have the flu and nausea? You know, what's your advice for the person who just needs to listen to their body, and it's okay if you get embarrassed and it ends up being the flu or something? Yeah.
So what I would say first and foremost is that's what the ER is there for. That's what we are there for, is to, you know, check things out. So pay attention to the symptoms. Pay attention to the combination of symptoms. Symptoms will often, like Christine's story, start as something maybe lighter, less concerning, and continue to progress. And as they continue to build, don't discredit that, don't dismiss them, and also don't delay calling 911 or getting yourself to the nearest medical care.
One that I read about as well, a symptom of a heart attack, is jaw pain. Not necessarily the shooting arm pain like you said that we hear, but are there any others that somebody might experience that aren't like Christine's symptoms, that are a little out of the ordinary? Is jaw pain an ordinary symptom of it? So typically we talk about angina or chest pain as being substernal, and it can very well radiate to the jaw or the left arm. That's classic angina. But it can radiate to other arms. It can shoot to the back. It's definitely to the arms, to the back, to the jaw, are all worrisome symptoms with that chest discomfort. Okay. So we're just trying to inform people under 50, over 50, of the risk factors, or of the symptoms of an actual heart attack. When we come back, we'll talk more about what we can do to prevent being part of that statistic, even being part of even one risk factor. And we'll also talk about an event coming up in our community at the end of the month that can get you thinking about heart health. We'll be back with Dr. Love in just a moment.
Are you wanting high-speed internet but don't have access to PUD fiber? Try Sky-Fi high-speed wireless internet from LocalTel. Call 888-8888 today.
Hi, we're back. Thanks for rejoining us. We're talking with Dr. Love of Confluence Health. We're talking about the risk factors and symptoms of a heart attack in females under 50 and over 50. And now we're going to talk about how we can prevent being part of the risk factors, even one of them. So if someone watching today has been contemplating making a change in their health, what is the first thing you'd tell them to do, and then the other things that might help contribute to a better lifestyle, a healthier lifestyle? Absolutely.
So number one would be to check in with their primary care doctor to make sure if they do have any chronic medical conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, or high cholesterol, that they're what we would call tuned up. Make sure they're on the right therapies and they're optimized for those risk factors. All of those can up to double your risk of having a heart attack. Second thing would be, if you're a smoker or tobacco user really of any kind, to quit. So we definitely have resources at Confluence as well to help assist with that. There are medication options, there are and behavioral options that can augment your ability to quit. And then obviously, and goes without saying, to have a healthy diet and active lifestyle. So you want to make sure that obviously you're able and you're up to doing physical activity and That's why the first stop should be to the doctor. And if you are, then starting an exercise program with the goal of getting to about 30 to 60 minutes of activity a day, that is what it would be recommended.
And so that can be as simple as walking.
Absolutely.
And increasing that pace and amount of time you do it. And one thing that I notice, I feel so much better when I'm drinking a lot of water. And I've read those articles about drinking water first thing in the morning and heart health. So that's another thing that's important, obviously, not acutely, but overall.
Yeah, a big reason for that is just because it's not calories. We tend to have the empty calories in coffee and sugary drinks and things like that. But water is beneficial for hydration, but as well as keeps your belly full and keeps the calories off.
Well, one of the things we were talking about at the break was the things that motivate us, so motivators to do that, whether it's keeping track on the calendar or, you know, joining a gym class or getting in your minutes on a treadmill, whatever that is, whatever that looks like for you. So I got a Fitbit recently, just a couple of weeks ago, and I don't join the big groups where I'm challenging my friends all over the country. I haven't done that, but I have set a couple of goals. So I got my little alert when I completed a marathon over 6 days for how many steps I took. So I got my marathon badge, which was pretty cool. The other thing I was saying is that I did a workout that I bought online this morning, and this thing wasn't picking it up. It wasn't picking up my activity minutes, and it wasn't making me happy. So I had to figure out how to manually do that. For me, this is working. But what are some other things? I mean, you talked about how, when we talked off during the break, that the Fitbit and other tricks like that really do work to motivate, if that's what motivates you.
Yeah, external motivation I think is a huge part of everyone's life. And patients particularly love that, and especially when they have something to come in and tell me and say, hey doc, I lost 20 pounds, or I do 10,000 steps a day, I do 5,000 steps a day. And they can point to something and as proof that they're out there and they're doing the work. So I think whatever motivates you, a Fitbit, a calendar, you know, plugging it into your phone, whatever that is, that helps you log and helps you take the steps towards heart health is beneficial.
Well, one of the things too that I have noticed through I read an article recently about how sitting is the new smoking. If you sit all day and don't get up, and I work, when I'm working, I'm usually at a desk, and so at home. So I bought a desk treadmill, and that is life-changing as well, because most of the work I do, I can do while walking, and it doesn't incline, it doesn't go up to 10 or anything like that. It's just 4, and it's flat, and you know, you can work at it whatever pace you want. So those kinds of things, getting up, and if you were sitting at a desk all day, so take a walk at lunch.
Absolutely,
you know,
take a
things
walk
like that.
At lunch, standing desks, treadmill desks, those are all great things. We know that Americans in particular, our rates of sedentary work and obesity therefore are higher than the rest of the world, and that contributes to our epidemic of heart disease. So anything that you can do to stay a little bit more active, you can buy, just do some simple calisthenics at your desk. Get that heart rate up for a little bit, and like we were saying before, it's a cumulative benefit of exercise. It doesn't have to be all 30 to 60 minutes at one time. It can be 15, 15, 15. Just getting that heart rate up and keeping it up for a little bit has its benefits.
The older I get, the less I care about how my clothes fit. The more I care about my resting heart rate and the steps I take, and you know, I think maybe that comes with age, but I think that the Fitbit or anything like that is a good way to track it. So I want to ask one specific question that my friends knew you were coming on today, and we need an answer. Wine. So we've read articles, I've seen them, where a glass of red wine is the equivalent to 10 minutes of exercise, or whatever it is. And is red wine better than white wine? And how does that affect our cardiac health? What answer can you give to the viewers who are waiting to know about wine?
It's a great question, and something I hear quite frequently. And I would take you back to something probably your grandmother or your mother always said, that moderation is key. And so specifically, one alcoholic beverage, so that's a small glass of wine, beer, 1 ounce of hard alcohol. Those things, no more than 1 per day for women and up to 2 for men. And red wine, I can't say that necessarily red versus white has a huge benefit versus the other. But you know, again, if the question is a glass of wine at night with dinner, I would say one's okay.
one's okay. Nobody's going to be happy with that answer. Just saying. But thanks for being here. Let's talk real quick. We have an event coming up in our community. If you're starting to think about your heart health or you are already on that journey, we invite you to attend the Heartbreaker 5K. Tell us about that. That's in partnership with Confluence Health, Run Wenatchee, and Wenatchee Valley Medical Group.
Yeah, absolutely. It's on February 24th. It starts at 9 a.m., I believe, from Pybus Market, and it's a run and walk. So it's designed to get people out there, get people active. Again, it might not be the event to start if you haven't been active, but it's something to definitely work up to, and there are lots of these kinds of events throughout the year. So if you are walking and you're interested in it, go ahead and come on out, and it should be a good time.
And if you aren't doing that yet and you see your doctor and you get approval, I think these are great ways to track yourself. So if you got approval from your doctor and you're ready to start exercising, and you can tackle 3 miles as long as it takes you to do it, and then next year you could do it again and see your progress. So again, it is February 24th, Heartbreaker 5K. You can register at runwenatchee.com and participate in this really good activity to get you thinking about your heart health or to celebrate the care you take already. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Very informative.
Thank you.
I appreciate your help. We'll be back in just a moment.
For all the latest news in North Central Washington, go to ncwlife.com or find us on Facebook. Got a news tip? Email us at news@ncwlife.com or call 888-2020.
Hi, you're joining me in my house. I'm recording an interview with Christine Wayne. She's with us from New York. And as we talked about with Dr. Love at the beginning of the show, we wanted to talk directly with Christine about her experiences the day she had a heart attack. Christine, I know from talking to you, thanks for being here, by the way, and thanks for your patience with this technology we're trying to use. So when you and I talked off air, you said that you'd stayed home from work the day before, so 2 days missing work was a big deal for you. It doesn't usually happen. And then you had obligations that evening with a friend for dinner that you didn't want to cancel, so all these responsibilities were kind of there at the forefront for you, like we all do, kind of push the importance of our health aside in order to please and maintain our daily schedule. So talk about from the morning that you start to feel bad and when things are getting progressively worse. You'd mentioned how difficult it was even to shower.
Sure. Yeah. I was really tired that day, and I had slept a lot the day before because I stayed home sick. So I had like 2 naps that day. And as it was approaching evening time, I was thinking about this dinner that was on the horizon, and it was around 6 o'clock, and I got into the shower, and that's where everything just went from just like a little bit of a cold to like, whoa, this is something big. This is something bigger than me. From, shampooing my hair to only being able to do it one hand at a time, to going through conditioner and just kind of cutting that shower short because I couldn't understand why it was so exhausting to just get through something I do every day.
Well, one of the things that Dr. Love mentioned is that it's not one symptom, it's the compilation of things that pile up that get progressively worse, and you put it all together and it means something serious. So it could start a week ago, it could start that morning, and for you it was a couple of days, and now it's all kind of coming to, it's making it very obvious this is a serious thing. So you get out of the shower and you're still struggling. At what point then do you think this is something serious, it's time for me to call for help?
I lie down on my bed with a towel draped around my shoulders, and I was soaking wet. That's something that we don't all normally do, right? We would avoid doing. I didn't know how to calm myself or relax. And so I talked myself through it. I'm looking at the ceiling. And when I realized that I couldn't physically get dressed by myself, that I couldn't get in that taxi cab, that Uber, or even call a friend, I didn't know how that next step was going to happen. That's when I reached for my phone, and I wanted permission from somebody. So I called my mom and I reached for my phone, just lying there on my back on my bed. And that's when I said, I think I'm going to call 911.
And you did. And so they come, and one of the things we also talked about, Dr. Love and I, before this segment of the show, was just how you're worried that maybe you're overreacting, or it's just anxiety, or you're embarrassed. What if it's nothing? And you got to that point where you're like, this is something. So you call 911, they come. Tell us, at what point do you discover, or you're told that you're having a heart attack?
Okay, well, this is interesting because physically my body was having a heart attack, but my mind was still somewhere in between, like, maybe this is no big deal and this is a really big deal, because there was that space. And because I'm 37, because I was living in Stamford, Connecticut, which is just outside of New York City, it's actually a high stress zone of people with those crazy jobs. The firemen didn't know I was having a heart attack. My ambulance team did not know I was having a heart attack. They all thought it was in the category of anxiety and that I was stressing out. So it was kind of a push and pull. But we went through the motions, and it wasn't until I was in the ambulance that my heart stopped, that we all knew that I had a heart attack. And I didn't know until the next day.
Right. So then the rest of it's kind of them taking care of you, and you, them saving your life. Fortunately, you called when you did, because there was just a very small window of time for you. And obviously, if you're in an ambulance and your heart stops, better off than you lying on your bed looking at the ceiling by yourself. So we have about 3 minutes left. Let's talk about, people are, it would be curious to me, because so often, unfortunately, people don't survive. And so they don't get to say, hey, these are the warning signs. These are the things that I felt. You've shared some of that with us today. What is your advice to people, and what about it that progressed for you that now you look back and think, okay, so it started a week before that, or 2 days before that, and what advice can you give to people to avoid that situation for themselves? Just a couple minutes left.
Yeah, sure. I mean, my advice is still not to be afraid of the cost of ambulance or the embarrassment. What I was told by my doctor, or one of the doctors that saved my life from the ER, I mean, he actually had tears in his eyes, and he's just like, call every time because you called the right time. I knew in my heart, right? It is the chill stuff. And I just got the chills too. I knew in my heart, and yet it wasn't my heart. I knew in my heart this was bigger than me. So I was thinking lungs, I was thinking pneumonia, I was thinking bronchitis, all that stuff that comes with winter colds, the flu, right? I wasn't thinking heart attack, never for a minute. So my advice is that my body was telling me, and I was listening, but had I, could I have tried to sleep it off? Yeah, but
if I don't feel better tomorrow, I'll call a doctor, I'll go see a doctor, that sort of thing.
Right. So
don't do that. That's your advice, right? Don't do that.
Do it. Call 911. And I will say, doctors and the hospitals will work with you on the payment stuff. So I have learned that too, that making it like your friends and family will come together for even if it's nothing. So they want you here. I learned that. I learned that there's a lot more love in my life than I even realized.
Well, that's a great lesson too. We just have a minute left. So I just want to thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for helping me discover this new technology that allows us to do this in addition to Skype in the studio. And also, thank you for sharing your story on Facebook, because that's where I first read it. And you went into great detail. And not often are those types of posts shared, because it's long. And I read the whole thing, and I shared it, and I said, I read the whole thing, and I'm going to invite her on my show. I sure hope she comes. And you did. So thank you for that. I'm so glad you're here. And 37 years old, that's a scary thing. So keep fighting that good fight for yourself.
Thank you. So awesome to meet you. I'm glad to know you guys now.
Yeah, it's good. Good. We'll stay in touch. And if I am ever in that part of the country, I'd love to take you to dinner or something.
Right.
All right. Take care. Thanks for joining me in this new way of doing this part of the show. It worked this time, so I'm super happy, and I'm really grateful to Christine Wayne and all the people who are watching. Be back next time.
Stay up to date with what's happening in North Central Washington. Go to the NCW Life Community Calendar at ncwlife.com.